Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is March 31st, 2016, and this is the Daily Code, where we explore all things sciencey and code related. And tonight, as yesterday, we are going to, or today, maybe morning for you, we are going to look at some more refactoring of a Laravel app that I've been working on for the longest time. I explained a little bit yesterday about what this app was about. If you missed that, don't worry, you can check out the videos in the archive, which I will link to at the end of the show. But to give you a brief rundown of it, this is an application that looks at modules on Packagist and on GitHub and analyzes them for the quality of their source code, and also creates suggestions for how to improve the quality of the source code, which is great, and I've had a lot of fun working with it. And I kind of entered into the third major version of it in the last few days, and I continue to work on that, and I continue to optimize things. And yesterday we looked at a couple of these commands. The ones that we looked at were fetching, I think was already done, forking we worked on a little bit, and inspecting the code quality we did on stream. And I wanted to go back and look at this this fetch command. So if you, I need to get a there you go. Okay, if we run the artisan list to see what commands are available here, I have a few that are prefixed by HR for helpful robot, and if I do HR fetch, I'll have to do PHP artisan as well. HR fetch. What it'll start to do is go through Packagist, and I don't have memcache, I don't have MySQL either. Let's see, sudo MySQL, sure. Let's start that up. Okay, there's that. I think I use memcache, perhaps. I also use Beanstalk, but what I do want to do is I want to change the, let me just drag this to a different screen because I'm editing the env file. And I'm changing the queue driver to sync because I want the stuff all to run synchronously. So a lot of the work that we did yesterday and the day before was, or just yesterday I guess on stream, was to push a lot of the synchronous blocking work out into Queued Jobs so that someone doesn't have to sit with the terminal open and basically wait for tasks to execute completely. But the one thing that I didn't do was I left this, I can actually close this now, and that. I left this command to make sequential requests to Packagist, to fetch modules off of Packagist. And then the work to convert those from just arrays of Packagist JSON data to records in the database, that stuff goes to a queue. But what this task still does is it waits for a request to finish, gets the next URL from the response data, and then makes that request. So this is still a very synchronous process, and I would have to keep it open for 10 to 15 minutes just to get it to complete the full request cycle to get all of the packages off of Packagist. So what I want to do instead is I want to move this process of getting sequential data, I want to move this into a message queue as well. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that now. I created a few different jobs so far for the work that we're pushing out into Queued Jobs, and we're going to make another one now, which is PHP, the command for this is PHP artisan make job, and we give it a name. So I'll just call this, we already have a fetch module job, but maybe a query Packagist job. Sure, that seems okay. That'll put a new file in here. And I can immediately get rid of some of the nonsense with this. So I can get rid of those traits. I don't need them. Let's see. Now what I'm going to do, let me have something to drink first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create this job and give it a URL. So I will make that a parameter URL, and I'll initialize it. Let's update the doc and let's initialize the field. Yay. Okay. And this is just gonna be a string, which is fine. And I'll type into there. All right, fine. So we can create jobs to query Packagist and just give them a URL, okay? Then this handle method, all the jobs need to have this. I'll just inherit the doc for this. And what this is going to do is this is going to query the next thing. Okay, let's do this. Now this command actually does a few things. It makes a request, and if it gets data back from that request, it gets ready to make another request in the next loop iteration. And it also goes through each of the resulting modules returned from Packagist and creates fetch module jobs for them. So basically what we want to do is we want to, let's see, we want to take this out. Let's put this in here quickly and see what this is doing. Okay, so it's getting the contents of next, which is a URL. So we can actually change this to this URL. It's using a context here, which we create further up here. This is just a stream context for the get file contents to do certain HTTP things. It's not really complex. So we're getting the contents of the URL that we create this job with using these HTTP parameters. If it doesn't work exactly, let's import this class. If it doesn't get a successful response, then we want to mark this job as failed and return. So we don't want to process anything more after that. However, if it doesn't fail, we can do a few things. We can get the data deserialized from Packagist. And if there's a next URL, well, then we can use a trait here. Use dispatches jobs. There's this trait which allows us to dispatch a new job. So we can do this. Dispatch query Packagist job, and we want to do it with the new URL. Great. We can forget about this paging because that was just in the loop that would query every new page from Packagist. We don't need to maintain that. In fact, we can even get rid of this comment because it's no longer necessary. And then for each module, we queue a job to fetch that module. So this makes sure that we step through each of the pages that come back from Packagist, each of the links to the next pages that come back from Packagist. But we don't need to do this in a big giant loop anymore. We just go back to this fetch command and we can remove all of this stuff. We can remove all of this stuff. And now instead of doing this querying here, we can say this dispatch new query Packagist job search. So for each URL that we have in our search config, let's see where this is, Packagist. For each URL we have here to say, get me these modules from Packagist and download all their data, it'll go through each of these and create one job for each, which will start to query from Packagist. Now we can see this in action because we've actually changed back to the synchronous queue. If I run this again, oh, maybe I need to say, I'll put a line here to say, let's see, creating job to fetch search. Okay, let's see how that looks if we run this in the command line. So fetch, creating job to fetch that, and creating job to fetch the next one. Are we seeing anything? Okay, so we're not seeing anything here because we removed a lot of the writing from this. What we should say is, let's put some lines in here. I wonder if this will even work for us, but anyway, sprint if fetching this URL. Let's see if that writes out to the console. No. That's right, we don't have a line property. Do we have to stick to prints for this? Ew, gross. Okay, well, we can extend jobs to print this stuff out. I'm going to delete this and work around it later. But for now, I'm just going to say protected line. Oh, protected function line. I'm getting kind of confused. Message. And this will just do exactly what we did now. Print, message, and a new line. Okay. So now when we go back to the job, we can do this line again. And we don't have to worry about the new line. And then when we run this, we'll see, okay, fetching that, fetching page 2, fetching page 3, and these are all sequential jobs, which is pretty cool because we're doing the same amount of work. But if we run this without a synchronous queue, then what we're going to be able to do is just, I'll show you what we can do. Let's see. I've got to change my .env file again, so I'll move this over here. Beanstalk D, beanstalk. Always looks wrong if you stare at it too much. Anyway, we can run this and we're going to see two things. Oh, we didn't, because I'm not running beanstalk. Sure. Okay. That's it. That's how long we have to keep this open for. But if we go back to the same place and we say artisan queue listen, I think it is, then we can start to see the jobs that are picked up. So each new call is a new job because the sequential pages are being created as new jobs. This is creating jobs in a queued fashion. And if I cancel this, it's not going to keep on requesting the queue listener, of course. And the queue listener runs in the background, so that's not really going to happen. But instead of requesting everything from this hr fetch command and having to wait for all of that, we're requesting individual pages as new queue jobs. And then the modules that come back from that are getting put into queue jobs of their own. So now we can request pages in any order, and we can process modules before we even get all the pages back. Which is great. Which is super great. Now, I mentioned that there was this thing here. We've got this, let me just comment this quickly. String message. We've got this, which I created because I wasn't sure about the pattern I wanted to do for failure. If you this returns void, so you can't say return this failed, because PHP Storm will give you a warning that you're returning, that you're using a void result of a function, or the result of a void function. So I made this so that I could return this fail and use that as an exit point for just one line. But I decided I didn't actually like that pattern because it seemed kind of dumb. So I have to go back through my commands and just make sure that I'm not using it anymore. I also want to get rid of these heading lines because they're not particularly helpful. So fetch, fork, let's get rid of this heading line. And I'm not doing any of those fails here. Inspect, I've got another heading line here I want to get rid of. And I'm not doing any of the fails here. All of the fails have moved into job instances, which is great. There was some debugging stuff I did. Let's see. Where have I got some of these fails? None here. I should have a lot in the fork module though, in the fork job. Ah, there we go. Okay, so this failed. Return. I'll just replace instances of this with what I've settled on. Wow, I fail lots of times. There's lots of fail conditions here. I don't have to return null here anymore, and I can remove the return of this. It was necessary when I returned null the whole time, but now I'm not returning anything, so that's fine. Okay. Now I have this here in a lot of places. I have it here when I'm forking, and then in the inspect job module, which I think I may also have some failure conditions in. Let me just check. No. Okay, and back, so I have it in the fork module job. I have check if the folder doesn't exist or the lock file does exist, which means it hasn't cloned or there was, like, it failed mid-clone, and so the lock file wasn't removed. I have the check here, and I have it back here again in inspection, I think. Or I don't, but I should. I just fail if there's no inspection. But what I should do is I should fail if there's no inspection or the module hasn't been cloned yet. Basically, I want to add a shortcut to the module class. So something like public function get let's see. Get has failed deployment, has failed clone, get can inspect. Let's see, is inspectable. I'm trying to think of a good name for this. Something to say, I can inspect this. It's okay, it has a clone. I think has a clone is the more interesting thing. So get has been cloned. Here we go. Get has been cloned attribute. Return file exists this folder and not file exists this lock. There we go. And this is Boolean. So these are other attributes I have here. Folder gets the, let's see. Folder checks whether this has been cloned to a specific location, and lock file also gets the path to a lock file in the same place. So if it has been cloned, it'll have a clone folder and it won't have a lock file, because those are things that constitute a valid fork or a valid clone to the local system. So that's cool. I can actually replace this here. I could say if not this module has been cloned, and I need to add this as an attribute to the module I've just remembered. So I've got a bunch of attributes here which will tell PHP Storm what to do with this. Property has been cloned. I have this in a bunch of places, these underscores. I wonder if I should just stick to that. I wonder if I should just stick to that for the sake of consistency. Because that's what I've stored it in the database as, or have had to store it in the database as. What a sentence. Has been cloned. If this module has been cloned, then if it hasn't been cloned, then clone it. And in the inspect module job, here I have if not inspection or not this module has been cloned. There we go. So if it doesn't have an inspection or it hasn't been cloned, don't inspect it. Which is great, because now I can, the first time it's going to have a lot of failures if I try and do the forking, the fetching and the forking and the inspections all at the same time. But once it has the majority of the modules fetched and forked, it can start inspecting at exactly the same time as it is fetching new ones and forking new ones. It's just going to skip over some. It's not going to have the full set always updated, but I can start to do all these things at the same time, which is more interesting for me because I don't have to keep console applications open the whole time. That's great. I'm having a lot of fun so far and learning quite a bunch of stuff, but I'm going to take a quick break and I'm going to get something to drink and I will be back super soon. So listen to the music for a couple minutes and I'll be back now.